Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's a few minutes after 4 o'clock. I did have a number of quite a few acceptances for this one, but I'm really conscious of time, and I'm really conscious that quite a few people are wanting to watch the videos afterwards. So we will start. It's just gone 4 o'clock, and thank you for your attendance this afternoon. Um, I think most people know me, but I'll just introduce myself. My name's Bruce Wilson. I'm the secondary educational technologist within the United Learning Technology team. This is session 3 of a series of 5 webinars this half of the autumn term, where we're looking at various apps and tools within the Office 365 toolset, which is right across United Learning schools. And specifically in this session we'll be looking at Office Mix and a relatively new tool, Stream. Those of you that have done the other two sessions, thanks for coming back. As I said, this is one of 5. This will be the last time you hear from me as the lead. I did the first one, and we had guests from Microsoft doing the second one. But the last 2, of which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end, we're going to be hearing from colleagues from one of our schools in the next one, and then my other colleague Dan Bunker is going to be leading on the last one. So hopefully not going to be too bored of my voice. I'm going to be around, probably chipping in the background, but that's kind of the plan moving forward. I'll whiz through this quite quickly. I think most people are on mute. It just makes the sound return much more comfortable for people. Hopefully you can all hear me. In rehearsals, my slide deck was showing on a slight delay, so if you can't hear me for any reason, or if the slide deck and the live demos are not coming through at pace, then don't suffer in silence. Do let me know, and I will just try to slow up a little bit. Thank you, Robin. There's been quite a lot of feedback and a request for the videos and so on after the webinar, so that's great. I'm not sure I've got an hour's worth of material today, probably 45 minutes or 50 minutes. So there will be lots of opportunities to ask questions. So please do that. I think it makes the webinar a broader, richer experience for everyone. And it works quite well on the playback as well, the playback through the video, if the webinar is conversational rather than me chirping away all the time. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is just a little bit of slide material and then some demonstrations, and we'll break it down into 2. We're going to look at Office Mix first, and then we're going to look at the newer tool Stream in the second half of the webinar. So that's basically the plan. Okay, so let's start with Office Mix. So before I demonstrate it, I just want to say a few words about what it is and why I've chosen it, to be part of this webinar series, and also this is one that's changing a little bit over the coming months. So I just want to flag some of that. So there's some developments, and there's also some overlap with other Office 365 tools as well, which I'll flag in a second. So what is it? Well, in essence, it's an addition to PowerPoint, which lets you do a couple of things. The 3 main things I'm going to be looking at this afternoon are recording over your either new or existing PowerPoint slides. What do we mean by recording? Well, that's typically going to be either an audio or video and audio overlay onto existing PowerPoint slides. What it also allows you to do when you use the record slideshow button is to annotate using inking tools on top of on top of existing or new PowerPoint slides. So that's very, very powerful. I'll try and explain what I mean by that in a second, but love it or loathe it, there are an awful lot of content out there being used in lessons and in learning environments, online learning environments using PowerPoint. I think Mix is a really, really powerful way to add real clear teacher instruction, literally the teacher talking, or a video overlay of the teacher talking with some annotations on top of existing content. And I think that's very, very powerful. I'm also very briefly going to show you the second bit of functionality there, which is apps and quizzes. So there is the ability to drop in quite short, sharp, interactive exercises, multiple choice questions, that kind of thing, again, into either new or existing PowerPoint presentations. And again, that adds an element of interactivity. I'm not going to dwell on that too much, actually, because I don't think it's as powerful as the recording the teacher's voice on top of it. I think that offers an awful lot, and I'll explore that in a second. So I'll touch on that very, very briefly, the apps and quizzes. And actually, there is a much, much better tool, Microsoft Forms, for doing online quizzes and that kind of thing, which Dan Bunkle will talk about in a lot more detail in webinar 5, the last webinar. So it's there, but it's not as good as other tools within the tool set. And then the final thing I'll just touch on is the last part of functionality there, which is what you do with the videos. How can you export them? Where can you put them? And how they can be used, kind of moving forwards. Now, I suppose why might you do that with PowerPoint? And I had as with a lot of United Learning colleagues, had the great pleasure of listening to Colin Hegarty last week. For those of you that don't know, Colin Hegarty is the brains trust behind Hegarty Maths, which is being used in a lot of, I think all United Learning secondary schools, and just starting to come into primaries as well. And he spoke very, very powerfully about homework and about the power of homework when it's done really, really well, and the lack of power of homework when it's done badly. So I think there's some opportunities here, either for those of you that are exploring flipped learning in your teaching and learning strategy, or just looking at perhaps virtual learning environments and homework more broadly. And I think what Colin was trying to say in the presentation that we saw was that having really good teacher instruction that the children and students can review in their own time, perhaps over and on top of existing resources, it's probably a good thing. So I'll try and show that, what I mean by that, when we get into the demo. Okay, last couple of bits of content before we actually have a look at it. Now, there are some changes that are sort of underway as we speak with Office Mix, and I just want to talk a little bit about Office Mix as it sits currently, and then where it's going to. And I will share this slide deck after the webinar, and there are a couple of support links that you can access at the bottom of this slide build, which will talk about this in a lot more detail. So I don't want to bore you with all of the detail here. I just want to flag the top level items, and the slide deck will have links off for further support. So the current position is this. Currently, if you go to the Office Mix website, you essentially access and download what's known as an add-in for PowerPoint. That's how it's currently kind of done, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get to the demo in about a minute or so. What you end up with is another tab in the PowerPoint ribbon. So the ribbon is the tool set at the top of PowerPoint and all Office applications, and what you end up with is another one, and it's labeled Mix. Currently, there is also an outwardly facing Office Mix website. So what you end up with when you make a mix is essentially a PowerPoint with some talking and some annotations on it, but that can be exported as a video, and you can share that video outwardly beyond your school, beyond United Learning, on an Office Mix website. There's also a means to share that finished video within Office 365. And at the moment, there's another app within 365, and it's called Office 365 Video, and that's inside your tenancy. Okay, so that's essentially is the current position. It's a downloadable app or add-in for PowerPoint. It gives you more tools, which you can see on the ribbon, and then you can either publish your finished content externally via a separate Office Mix website, or internally via Office 365 Video in 365. However, even though that combination of tools is very, very powerful in my view, in our view, it's not going to be like that forever. So this is what is going to happen. Essentially, all of that is being streamlined. The Office Mix website is going, and it will no longer be an add-in for PowerPoint. Essentially, it's becoming part of PowerPoint. And as long as you're on the 2016 version, it will become part of PowerPoint. You may have to tick a few boxes and get it to show in your ribbon. And again, the support sites will show you how to do that. But it's going to become part of PowerPoint. Also, the means by which you can share the finished videos are also being completely, pardon the pun, streamlined as well. The Office Mix website is going. Office 365 Video, that app is also going, and that's all going to be replaced by the Office 365 video streaming and sharing application, which is called Stream, and that is going to be in the second half of this webinar, and it's why I put the two tools together in this webinar. As I say, I won't go into any more detail right now. If you do look at those two support links when you get the slide deck, that will give you a lot more detail about when and where and how all of those kind of things are happening. So I hope all that makes sense. Right now, if you go to Mix and download the add-in, you will be able to use the tool set. My advice probably at the moment is don't put anything either on the Office Mix website or in Office 365 Video. If you are making videos, and I'll show you how that's done now, put them straight into Stream, and we'll look at Stream at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions about that after the webinar, drop me a line. It's a bit of a fast-moving feast at the moment, but I just wanted to make those changes clear because I didn't want you to get into using the old version and then suddenly be faced with a migration pathway. So let's have a look at it now. I'm going to jump out of the slide deck now and give you a quick demo of Mix, and we'll look at how to do those recordings. So how to do video or audio voiceovers with animations. We'll look at that. As I say, we'll look at very, very quickly how to drop in apps and quizzes. One of the other sort of gems in here is that there are loads of bits of software out there by which you can do screen recording, as in outside PowerPoint, just recording literally what you're doing in a Windows environment. And there's a tool in here that allows you to do that really easily. And then we'll look at exporting all of that, and that will be the link to Stream. So I hope that's okay. Just whilst I load up the demo, are there any questions at this point? Hopefully that's all clear. Somebody say something or type something. I'm feeling very lonely. Hopefully that's all clear. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Dominic. Dominic's saying very clear. Thank you, Yasmin. Ah, brilliant. Okay, okay. Bear with me a second. I'm going to just present my desktop. So I'm going to jump out of. Thank you, Dominic. I'm going to jump out of the slide deck, and hopefully in a second you're going to be seeing my monitor. So if you could let me know when that comes through, that would be great. I'm seeing it in my end now, so you should be now seeing. Oh, thanks for the tweet, Yasmin. That's great. Should be now seeing my monitor. Okay, so just to be clear now, I've stopped the PowerPoint slide that I was using to talk to you guys, and I'm showing you my desktop, and my desktop has a PowerPoint slide deck. It's actually the one I'm using today. Hopefully that's clear. And it's not in slideshow mode. It's in the edit mode. Okay, so you know there was the slide that I've just been using. Okay, so let's just click on that slide. So either when you get the new version and customize the ribbon, or when you download the Mix add-in, you get another tab. So these are all the ones you're used to: File, Home, Insert, Design, and so on and so forth. Essentially, you get another tab. When all the transition's done, it's going to be called Recording. Okay, the tab will be called Recording in the picture. I've got an existing version, and it's currently called Mix, but the tool set is essentially the same. I hope that makes sense. So let's look at the first one first: Recordings, video or audio voiceovers onto slides with animation. So what you do is you use this first button on the left hand side there, and it's called Slide Recording. And when you jump into that, you get a slightly different interface which looks a little bit like that. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a Blue Peter here, in that I'm going to talk you through how this works. I'm going to show you the buttons and talk about the functionality. If I start to do a slide recording now, the webinar is going to get really confused, because it's going to think I'm doing a webinar and a slide recording at the same time. I've tried it in rehearsals. It spits the dummy, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'll show you one I've done earlier, if that makes sense. I learned from Kevin's mistake last week, where he was doing a webinar and tried to insert a video into OneNote, and it all goes a little bit pear-shaped. So it's a fairly simple interface. So you've got a record button over here. You can use the slides in terms of previous slide or next slide, and you can also run the animations either forwards or backwards. Over on the right hand side, you've got some options to either, I'm not going to do this now, as I say, because it will throw my out, but you can select a camera, a video camera, a webcam, and you can select a microphone in which you're kind of speaking in. So the scenario is going to be one where you've got a webcam and a microphone, and you are literally doing either an audio or a video with pictures and sound, a voiceover on top of a PowerPoint slide. Now that can just be one slide, or it can be a series of slides. It doesn't really matter. If I was just doing here, I would select my camera, I would select my microphone, and then I would hit record, and then what I would do is I would go through the animations, talking over them much like I'm doing now, and if I had a point to stress, I would perhaps grab a pen, a thick pen, a medium pen, or a thin pen, pick a colour, and I would actually write over the voiceover and all the slides. And all you do is you hit record once the camera and the microphone is set up, and you just talk away, and that's it. Once the presentation's done, you essentially end up with a video, and you've got some other bits of functionality up here. You can preview it before it's exported. You can delete it on the slide, or delete all of the slides that you've done them on. and you can also trim it a little bit. So if you stumble a little bit at the start and you want to just trim down the video, you can do that as well. So I hope that makes sense. Let me just close that interface. So just to go over that again, you're in the Mix tab or the Recording tab. You go to Slide Recording. You get a completely different interface which looks like that. You choose your camera, you choose your microphone, you choose your inking tools, and then you basically hit record. You work through your animations or multiple slides, and then when you're finished, you'll end up with a stop button there. You hit stop, and it will basically create a slide with a video voiceover within it. So, like I said, I'm not going to attempt to do that because the webinar will fall over. It'll get very confused. But that, hopefully you're seeing that on the screen there, that is essentially what you end up with. So if I was to actually play that slide, you would see my content on the PowerPoint slide. You would see my thumbnail video, but me actually talking with some audio. So that's me practicing in the London office yesterday. And as I go through the various bullet points or points I want to make, and I'm annotating them or drawing arrows or highlighting things, you'd actually kind of see that in real time as well. So that's essentially the first bit, and that for me is the most powerful bit. I just imagine there's loads and loads of PowerPoint presentations out there in United Learning schools. You know, wouldn't it be great if even a small fraction of those had some great teacher instruction and almost revisiting key points of the lesson dumped into a PowerPoint. That's not, in my mind, making new resources. I think it's just supercharging existing resources. And if those could be available as a video for students and children to be picking up at home, either to review content from the lesson or to help them with homework or to preload the next lesson, hopefully that would be a good thing. I'm working with a number of schools at the moment just to kind of get that process really, really slick. So I think teachers are going to struggle if they've got to do that as well as their existing workload, but I'm certainly working with a couple of schools in particular where we're looking at just getting that capture mechanism to a point where the clips are so small that they could actually do that in the lesson. As they're doing the plenary or as they're doing the starter, let's get that in the lesson, and then let's get it up to a streaming app like Stream, which we'll come to in a second, and then away to the students. I think if we can make that as time efficient as possible, we could be on to a bit of a winner there. So that's the best part about it. I'm glad to see Yasmin's agreeing with me. That's good. From United Teaching there, that's great. In fact, she's agreed with me twice, which is even better. Okay, so that's that one. That's the most powerful thing about Mix. Very, very quickly, because I'm conscious of time. The other very brief one I wanted to mention was quizzes and so on. So that's in the next button along. Let me just add another slide. I'll show you how this works. So I'm just creating a new slide, and then if we're in the mix or recording, tab, then you've got a blank sheet to work with. I'm going to show this very quickly because it's okay. It's not as good as Microsoft Forms, which Dan will be showing on webinar 5. So all you do is you hit that button. You may need to pull these down from the Microsoft Store to start with. Apologies, my monitor's gone a little bit blank. There we go. You may need to pull those down to start with, but for me, I've already done it. They're already there. Choose the one you want and insert it, and then you're basically editing a question builder in here. So I'll just do test question You have a few options here to say whether it's single choice or multiple choice or shuffle, depending on how many times they want to try it, and so on and so forth. And then you can select which one's right by clicking the ticks. Okay, so for example, let's just put a couple of. This is the right answer, and this is the wrong answer. Sorry, I'm just doing this at paces to show you how this works. And you've got some other options in terms of text formatting and so on. And then you've got the option to preview what that's actually going to look like. And this is the student experience. They're going to get a slide with a little bit of interactivity in it, whereas they choose the right answer and hit submit, they're going to get a little bit of limited feedback. That's about it. It's useful in small doses, I would say. When we get to forms on the last webinar, and you see the fact that you can collect data right back into editable spreadsheets, and you can do differentiation via branch questions and share via a number of mechanisms, I think you'll be far more impressed with forms. But it does exist in Mix, and some people like it. I've seen it used reasonably well, but not as powerful as the slide recording stuff, I don't think. Okay, now the last bit I just wanted to mention is that you've got at the top here a couple of means to save all that content. Now, as I say, this will either be, you know, a single slide with some video overlay, or it could be a number of slides, some with some video on, and others just with the content that's normal, and all of that gets wrapped up into a video which you can either give to the students, or even better, stream to the students via Stream, which we'll look at in a second. So you've got two bits of functionality up here. You've got export to video, which essentially just saves all of that into a video file on your computer. That's what that does. And that will take a bit of time depending on the processing power of your machine and the size of the slide deck and the video on it. And then you've got this button here, which is publish to, at the moment, Office 365 video. Now, as I say, that bit will change. That bit will turn into publish to Office 365 Stream, which is the brand new 365 streaming app, which we're going to look at in the second half of the webinar. And it's about 4:30, so I better crack on. So you've got an option basically to export it all as a video file, but secondly, push it up to a video streaming service within Office 365. I'm not going to do that now. I just want to show you a couple of things. Sorry, it's not that one. When you kind of do that, it gives you a few options. So it gives you a few options in terms of the visual quality of the thing. Do you want to set it up for an iPad or an iPhone, or do you want full HD quality? And then you've also got an option here of, for those slides that don't have video on it and that are just a static content, perhaps with some builds, you can let them linger on the screen for as long as you want. So it might be a quick burst of 5 seconds, or it might be a bit longer, perhaps 30 seconds. Any slides where you have, hopefully you'll be able to see that in the corner there, perhaps it's a bit small. Essentially, any slides where you have made a mix, where you have made a video voiceover, they will just play as long as the video explains. So on my example with that slide with me talking about the demo, it will just play for as long as I'm speaking, and the whole tool just packages all of that up together. Yeah, I think the way I see this being really well used, I think if teachers are one, not taking a lot of time, taking those key slides, perhaps even single slides, perhaps key plenaries, key starters, and just doing short, sharp bursts, that's where I see it really working. And if we can work together to get that done in real time in classrooms, where we can literally stream that key moment of the lesson, into a streaming service, then I think we're probably onto something that's very, very powerful there. Wow. I can't believe I've timed that to the minute. So that's the first half of the webinar. That's Office Mix. Any sort of thoughts, questions, comments, or views on that? Just whilst I load up the next one. If you have any questions, either type or speak now. So a few things coming through. Robin's saying it's very useful, so that's good. Dominic's typing something. Dominic's saying he's used it before. Quote, "It was as simple as any screencasting tool I've ever used." I think that's a good recommendation. The fact that it's built into a standard tool like PowerPoint, I think is good as well. You know, it's not something else to use. One thing I didn't show in detail there, and I will move on because I want to cover Stream, is there is another button which is screen recording. So the way that works is you just hit that button, it jumps out of PowerPoint, you select the part of or the whole screen that you want to record, and then you can be doing anything in Windows. You could be demonstrating a website or using any other tool, and the mix stroke recording tools within the add-in will record all of that, and that the end product gets dumped down as a video into PowerPoint. You don't have to leave it in PowerPoint. You can, but you can literally right-click and save it as a video. And so that's a really good way of doing screen recording of a Windows environment without. There are some other ways of doing it. You can download an Xbox tool from the store, which is another thing to do, or you can buy other software. It's really not needed. Okay, let's go on to the second half then. Sorry, these are in the wrong order. Let me just flick through. The risk of making you seasick, and I'm going to talk a little bit about video storing and streaming. Now, again, this is a fast-moving feast within Office 365. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you are going to see currently, and then I'm going to demonstrate Microsoft Stream. And talk a little bit about the future. So if you log on now, today, as long as those apps are enabled by your admin, you're actually going to see two video storing and streaming apps, which is not particularly helpful, but I just want to let you know because that's the current position. The one that has been there, I think, for about 3 or 4 years, certainly since I've been using Office 365, is Office 365 Video. So that's got blue branding. It's got that symbol there with a V. It was quite good. I've done quite a lot of work with it. Think of both of these tools actually as like your internal YouTube channel. But Office 365 Video is some great comments coming through about how it might be used actually. So thanks to those guys. They will come through on the video and it'll be useful for other people to see there. I won't get into conflab about it now because I want to finish this last bit off, but thanks. Where was I? Yes, so Office 365 Video is actually going. It's still there. It's been there for 3 or 4 years, but Microsoft plan is to stop that element of the service. For those schools that have stuff within it, there is a migration pathway. You're not going to lose all of that stuff. You're not going to have to download it and re-upload it to Stream. There will be a migration pathway, and again, the link at the bottom right-hand side of that screen there. I won't go through now, but there's some advice from Microsoft around the timelines, and if you're in a situation where you want to uplift stuff from Office 365 Video and get it into the new tool, which is Microsoft Stream. And I want you to think of, again, Microsoft Stream as an internal YouTube, a video storing and streaming tool, but it's on steroids compared to Office 365 Video. The video tool was just a repository really, but hopefully I think you're going to like some of the tools you're going to see in this new tool, and all the advice coming out of excuse me, Microsoft, excuse me, is that Stream is the way forward. So we're going to see video close off within a few months, I would have thought, and Stream ramping up. I'll just talk you through the headlines about what it is and what it looks like, and then I'll do a very, very quick demo, and then we'll finish the webinar with a link how Stream links to Teams, which is the webinar topic for next week. So I'll show you this in a second, but I mean, this is the interface. It's all of this is designed to be that kind of YouTube experience. So there's a really nice kind of graphical interface with all of the type of functionality that you see on channels like Vimeo and YouTube. So you've got, you know, my videos, my channels, my watch lists or playlists, you've got likes, you've got follows, you've got shares, all of those kind of things. Just to stress, because I know that will be concerning, that this is just within Office 365. I've explored this quite a lot. There doesn't seem to be any external sharing of video content in the same way as you can do with other parts of Office 365. So I showed you on the first webinar, for example, the fact that you can share beyond your tenancy guest users on a document level, and we'll look at that at Teams as well. But with Stream, this does seem to be all packaged within Office 365, which I think does have its benefits, certainly in an e-safety kind of sense. But I'll keep digging around on that, because maybe I've missed something. It operates in isolation, so you can watch and do all those things within the interface. But it's also the means by which video can be shared and streamed into other applications. So, for example, if you take the URL from a video in Stream and just literally cut and paste it into OneNote, which Kevin showed last week, you'll get not a link, but you'll get an embedded video in a OneNote. And we'll look at how that works in Microsoft Teams just before I finish today. So it's the way in which videos can be shared around other applications in the Office 365 kind of suite as well. This is just a quick screenshot of how you use it. It's a really simple interface. I'll show you this live in a second, and some of the work I've been doing with it. But essentially, you've got a toolbar along the top. Uploading a video or creating a channel or creating a group is just as simple as clicking those buttons and uploading a video from your computer. It literally is very similar and as easy to use as something like YouTube. It really is. The system is set up so that once the videos are up and shared, that you don't have to worry about any kind of playback, rendering or optimization. It's basically up there in the cloud. I've tried streaming some of the videos I've made down onto various devices. I've tried it on my phone as well, and it just does all of that kind of cross-platform rendering, if that's the right expression. I'm not a video expert. It just does that all kind of seamlessly for you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. That's all kind of done in the background, and that seems to be working really well, which I think is powerful. Now, this is the really interesting bit, and this is the bit that that has been added in. This is the bit that sort of supercharges this. So if you saw the old video interface, it wasn't as nice looking as that. It didn't have the overlap with other tools, and it didn't have lots of the functionality that's in Stream, and particularly it didn't have this bit. And I must admit, this is brand new to me. I'm not entirely sure how or what benefit this could have for for schools. The obvious thing in my mind is perhaps lesson observations. That's one use, but if you have others in your mind, please drop it in. What the tool allows you to do, either manually, and the way you do it is literally, when the video is uploading, you say at timestamp 15 seconds, this was a great example of a starter in a lesson. Or if you check a box when the video is uploading, I'll show you that in a second, you have the ability to create or get the system to automatically create a transcript. And that will either come down as a screenshot like that, or if you let the system to do it automatically, it literally will overlap subtitles. And I've not used that in anger a heck of a lot, and I'm still sort of battling in my mind about how that might be used. Lesson observation, I think, is perhaps the obvious one which springs to mind. There are bits of commercial software out there that can kind of do this, and they're expensive. They are another thing to learn. This seems to be built into the video streaming suite within Office 365, and of course the only hardware you need is something to take the video, which you've probably got already, some kind of capture sort of mechanism. So I think that's very, very powerful. I must admit, it's so new. I've not tried it other than in a couple of lessons. There are some issues with sound pickup. There are also some issues with the language. I think it might be really interesting for language teachers. Currently, as I understand it, that functionality is only working in English and in Spanish. I did a really, really quick trial in a maths lesson where the teacher was very good actually, but probably needed to project his voice a little bit, and I was just sat at the back with my iPhone, and it worked reasonably well. So that's quite interesting, quite powerful functionality. This one's even further out there. So when you upload these videos, it actually has some kind of form of face recognition software, so you can kind of get into, and again, benefits for maybe lesson observations could be explored. You can get into perhaps tagging various parts of the lessons, and it will actually, in essence, recognize when a particular person or teacher is talking. All of that is kind of brand new. I'm just flagging it because I think it's very interesting and potentially very powerful. I've not done it a huge amount with people, but it's potentially something to explore with people and to run some pilots on. We'll have a quick look at it in a second, but once the videos are there, all of the content created with Office web apps, like the content in OneDrive for Business, like all of the stuff that Kevin showed last week on OneNote, all of this stuff is really, really easy to share around. So that's either done literally by typing in your colleagues' names and it will find them and you can share that around, or you've got various other options in terms of creating links to emails or embed codes and various other means of sharing it. So in essence, it's really easy to get the stuff up there, to get it tagged and to share it around. So I've got a few minutes left. Let me just and again, this might just take a wee moment to come through, so I'm just going to leave the slide deck here and I am going to present my desktop just so you can kind of see the tool in action a little bit, rather than me talking about it via the slide deck. By the way, those slide decks are available on the Stream website. I have stolen with pride to use our CEO's message and nicked their marketing material, but it does give a nice summary of what the tool is and perhaps what it could be used for. So hopefully you're all seeing my screen now. Someone just give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Robin. That's great. So you've seen this before on the first couple of webinars. This is the Office 365 landing page. It's the first page you get to when you log on. Common apps, some of which we've seen before, some of which we'll come to, and the waffle there down the left-hand side. So these are the two tools, excuse me, that I've mentioned. That's the one that has been there historically but is going, and it's Microsoft Stream, which is the brand new storage and streaming website. So as I say, that's a wee bit of a look at the interface. I've been using it a little bit, so you can see I've got a number of kind of training videos there that's kind of built in, so you know how to use it. I've already created and/or are following a few channels with content in, largely based on some cross group projects I'm working on. Down here are some trending things, so these are either channels or particular videos with lots of likes or shares or comments on them. So you can see it's kind of working exactly like an internal YouTube and surfacing popular things, which is an interesting thing to kind of think about. Up here you've got your main kind of tools. So if I wanted to create a group or link a group that I'm already involved in, or a channel, or upload a video, that's where that's all done. I've got a My Content section where all of my videos are loaded. So you can see there are a number of things that I've been working on, and I've also broken my videos down into sections, so groups and channels, again depending on the particular projects I've been working with. Now I'll just show you the upload thing very briefly before we finish up, because this is the bit where you can do all of that timeline tagging and auto creation of subtitles and captions, which I think is very powerful. And out of the box, it literally does it for you. So it's a sort of an opt-out thing. The first one I uploaded and I viewed, I thought, where those subtitles come from? But it does it by default out of the box. So you actually need to turn it off, which is worth flagging for people. But it does do it very powerfully in the background. So if I select upload video, you can either drag and drop things into this interface, or if I just go select file, there's a video that's just a webinar I was doing, could be anything this, and if I go here now, you've got various things. I won't go through all of this because it will take forever, but in here you can add in hashtags, so you can find the video, and that's where you put your timestamp. So if you literally put in 20 seconds, could do this better in the plenary or whatever, that's where that would come down, and it maps that content to the video. And in here at the bottom here, in options, that's the auto generation of caption file. So that bit is actually checked by default. So turn that bit off if you don't want that, but that's where it's done. And that's enormously powerful. I'm not going to do that now because you don't want to sit and watch a video being uploaded, but it's a very simple interface, and as I say, lots of the functionality of YouTube type things, but within your Office 365 tenancy. So with just a few minutes left, what I thought I would do before making some closing remarks is just make a little bit of a link between Stream, which we've had a look at there, and Teams. Now, Teams is an immensely powerful tool. You're going to hear from myself briefly next week, next Tuesday. It's a Tuesday rather than a Wednesday, on Teams. And also Charlotte Beckhurst, who's the Vice Principal at Swindon Academy, mostly from her actually on how they're being used. But Teams has It's been incredible though these last few weeks, particularly for our team. I just want to put a little teaser here so you know exactly what it is, and just explain the link within with Teams. So hopefully you're still seeing my desktop there, and this is Teams in action. This is my EastEnders moment, Tabby, to keep you hanging on for next week's instalment. So. Let me just tell my son I can't talk to him right now. In the first session, we looked at OneDrive for Business, and OneDrive for Business was the memory stick in the cloud where you've got all of your personal stuff. Teams, in essence, becomes the shared memory. Thanks for the smiley face, Tabby. Becomes the shared area in the cloud. So. Think of it as SharePoint, if you know that, or server-based shared areas that are now up in the Office 365 toolset. So here's a project I've been working on. It's actually this project. It's a group of people with some resources that I've been working on this kind of project, and all of the files I need are in there. But also in there are a number of other tabs. I mean, the key one is a conversation tabs, whereby I have an in the moment fluid conversation outside of email with the people that I'm working on this project with. More about that next week. What Teams also does is it becomes the amalgamator for various parts of Office 365, and we'll go into this in much more detail in next week's webinar. But what I mean by that is there is a OneNote associated with this team, where we use the OneNote tool that you saw last week for meeting minutes. That's another tool, but it sits embedded within a team. I'm trying to use the Planner tool, which is an online series of tasks that I can either work on myself or pass on to other people. And again, that's another part of the tool. 365 toolset. It's embedded within the team, and so on and so forth. I can add in websites like Sways, and essentially put everything kind of all in one place. So that's it in a nutshell. The link with Stream is that what I can do is I can add another tab here. I can pick from a whole variety of apps, actually. If I wanted to point at a particular Word document or Excel document, I can do that. But let's choose Stream since we've been talking about that. And what I can do is I can actually give the video a name, copy and paste the link from the Stream app and just put it in there. And then essentially what it does is that it places that Stream video. Here's one I prepared earlier. I won't play it now because again the webinar will get confused. It will place that Stream video within my team. So that's what I meant by Stream being the way that video content can be shared around various other tools within Office 365. And equally, I could have done that in OneNote. Much more about Microsoft Teams on next Tuesday's show. If you have the chance to tune in, I really recommend it. Some of the work that's been going on down at Swindon has been really quite amazing to kind of look at. But I won't steal Charlotte's thunder. She can explain much more about that next Tuesday. Again, we will be recording it. Okay, I don't want to run over. Let me just make some closing remarks. So, bear with me a second. Okay. Great. So just a few slides then to close off. So that was Stream. That's what we were looking at. And as I say, there's a link to Microsoft Teams, that shared collaboration and communication environment. More about which you'll see next week. All of this activity, this webinar activity, and indeed a series of presentations that myself and some colleagues did at the primary GEF last week has generated a lot more interest in 365, which is one of our aims, which is good. We are hoping for this term not to be the end of the journey, but to draw colleagues together with a United Learning co-hosted event with Microsoft up in their amazing Paddington offices in the new year. That's going to be after schools come back, but before the BET show on January the 18th. On the feedback form for this webinar, if you're interested in that and want to take this journey on, then please let me know and we'll be in touch. The agenda is still TBC. There will be some input from us. There will be some input from the Microsoft team. Perhaps Kevin, I'm not quite sure yet, but we do genuinely want to get some input from schools as well in terms of what they want in terms of next steps. So I just wanted to get that out as a bit of a plug and a bit of a hold the date. Do pass me your interest if that's something that you or one of your colleagues might be interested in doing. And finally, just before I finish, the links on the links on this slide, which you will get, will take you through to all of the guides on Office 365 on the United Hub. There's some great work and some great resources there that Dan Bunker has put together. They are really worthwhile visiting. There is some stuff on Stream, and there is some stuff on Mix, and there is some stuff on Teams, as there is on all of the apps that we're looking at on this webinar series. Quite a few people did contact me on the after the webinar last week, and some of you are starting to log on to the Microsoft site and claim your badges and points, which is great. Let me just paste in the chat bar the code that Microsoft have given me for this one. I won't demo it now because I'm timing out, but if you go into your account and it says redeem points or something, or redeem code, and type in the one that I've just typed in there, and again I will put this on the follow-up email, you can get accredited for your attendance on the Office Mix webinar, and there are some other codes for other webinars as well. So if you're interested in doing that and building up your portfolio of accreditation, that's the code that you need there. Just before I finish and take any sort of final questions or points, just to flag the last two webinars, I really do recommend the next one. Sorry, that should say 4 and 5, not 3 and 4. Cut paste error there. But the next one is actually next Tuesday, the 28th, rather than a Wednesday. Same time, 4 till 5, but it's Tuesday the 28th. And that will be Charlotte Beckhurst and myself looking at Teams for Education in much more detail, a whole hour webinar on that. And then to close, just before Christmas season kicks in, Dan Bunker from our team is going to lead on Sway and Forms, which are great content creation tools. That's back on Wednesday. It's Wednesday the 6th of December, and again, same time, 4 till 5. So just to flag those up there. So thank you very much. I can see people saying thank you and goodbye. That was Office Mix and Stream. If you have any questions, I will stay on the line for a few minutes. If not, I wish you a good evening. It's 5 o'clock. I've got to cook my son's dinner, so I'm only going to stay on the line for a few more minutes. But have a lovely evening. Hope you found that useful, and we really hope to see you on the Teams and then the Forms and Sway webinar later in the term. Thank you very much.